She left on a Tuesday. I remember because the trash hadn't been picked up yet. It was early spring, the kind where mornings still bit through sweaters and old bones. But by noon, the sun pretended it remembered kindness. Nora stood in the entryway, suitcase at her side, scarf wrapped neatly around her neck like a noose she tied herself. "I need a break," she said, calm, practiced, as if she'd run through the line in her head 100 times and waited for the right Tuesday to deliver it. "Just for a little while. Paris first, then Rome, then, I don't know. I'll see what feels right." What she meant was, don't wait up. There was no fight, no tears, not even a cruel flourish. She didn't slam the door or accuse me of anything. She didn't cry or ask me to stop her. That would have required some level of attachment. She just left, like someone setting down a heavy object they no longer needed to carry. Like I was the weight. She hugged me, but not like a wife, not even like a friend. She hugged me like someone signing for a package. A necessary touch, a meaningless ritual. Her lips grazed my cheek, dry and cold. "I'll text you when I land," she said, already halfway out the door. She didn't say, "I love you." She didn't say when she'd be back. She didn't even ask if I'd be okay. I stood there holding her coffee cup, the one I brewed every morning since she stopped pretending to wake up early, and listened to the tires roll down the driveway like the last thread of a life unraveling. The house went silent almost immediately. Our place, 35 minutes west of Omaha, tucked into a street with identical lawns and forgotten promises, had always been quiet. But this was different. This wasn't peace. This was abandonment. I walked through the kitchen. Her breakfast was still on the counter. 2 bites missing from the toast. A smear of raspberry jam. She'd been planning this for weeks, maybe longer. You don't just book a multi-country trip in one breath. You don't pack bags that neatly without time. The dog sat by the door, whining. Not because she missed Nora, but because she knew something had changed. Dogs know when a house has been emptied of loyalty. They can smell absence. I cleaned up the plate, wiped down the counter, and opened the window out of habit, not hope. The spring air didn't help. It smelled like wet earth and cold regret. The first few days, I pretended things were normal. I went to work. I made dinner for one. I kept the thermostat at her preferred temperature. I watered the plants she always forgot about, paid the bills she didn't ask about, sorted the mail she never opened. I kept the machine running because that's what I always did. I was the one who held things together. The quiet presence, the check in the mail, the tire rotation reminder, the holiday planner, the steady pair of hands that kept the mess of her life from spilling out into the street. I had thought that counted for something. Nora's texts came every other day. Brief, polite, measured, landed safe, jet lag's rough. Paris is cold but beautiful. Attached were photos, always selective. An espresso on a marble table. A shadow cast across cobblestones. *T from her hotel window. Curtains just pulled enough to let in golden light. Not a single person in frame. Not even a reflection. Not me. Not a word about Omaha. Not a word about us. No, I miss you. No, how's the house? Or how's work? Or are you okay? I told myself it was the time zone. That she was tired. That maybe she really did need this. The way some people need silence after a funeral or a long walk after a scream. But I knew better. I've always known better. I just never wanted to admit it. By day 4, I started noticing the gaps. Small at first. An Audible subscription didn't auto-renew. Her fitness tracker app, the one I paid for, stopped syncing. I got a failed transaction alert from the streaming bundle we shared. I checked the account. Her profile was gone. She wasn't just taking a break from me. She was taking a break from us. I checked the bank dashboard. Nothing outrageous, just unusually quiet. A couple of charges from cafes in Paris, one boutique perfume shop. Then silence. Not a single charge from Rome yet, despite her saying she was there. Then I saw it. A calendar entry had been deleted from our shared account. One I had made months ago. Anniversary. Dinner at the Grey Plume. Gone. No notification. No explanation. She was cleaning up behind herself. erasing digital footprints, slowly peeling her name off the walls of our shared life like a tenant ending a lease. I left the house only when I had to. There's a strange dignity in silence, in holding the line while someone else pretends you've vanished. I thought maybe she'd realize. Maybe she'd miss the way I set the coffee for her. The quiet steadiness. The bills she never saw because I paid them before they arrived. But no calls came. No, I'm thinking about you. No check-ins that weren't transactional. Just more photos. This time from Rome. Some ruins, a fountain, a meal for one with the plate already half finished. Each image was a message, but not to me. Each was a breadcrumb trail leading to a new life she was previewing without me in it. By day 6, the space between texts had stretched into a chasm. I waited until late in the night before admitting to myself that I wouldn't hear from her that day. That maybe this was her way of soft-launching the end. No confrontation. No fight. Just an ellipsis that never closed. And still, I made the bed the way she liked. Smoothed the duvet. Fluffed the pillows. Folded her robe, even though she wasn't coming home. It was delusion in the shape of routine. It wasn't until day 7 that the truth came for me. Not with a bang, but with a bank notification. A decline charge. Florence, Italy. A boutique I didn't recognize. The payment didn't go through. Then, a minute later, my phone rang. I didn't answer. Nora. One missed call. Then a text, sharp and curt. Card issue. Something's wrong. Fix it. Urgent. No, hey. No, how are you? No apology. Just a demand. A request from someone who still believed she had access to me. To my wallet, to my labor, to the machine that kept her life seamless. That was when I stopped lying to myself. This wasn't a break. It was a field test. A soft launch of freedom. Freedom she was only comfortable tasting because she knew I'd still be here, paying, waiting, holding up the scaffolding of her escape. It was never about space. It was about leverage. She flew to Europe not to clear her head, but to make sure the lifeline still held while she cut herself loose, one thread at a time. I didn't text back. I didn't fix the card. Instead, I logged into the accounts. One by one, I removed her access. I revoked shared limits. I moved savings into new private vaults. I closed the backup card she'd used in Florence. The one she never thanked me for. I didn't send a message. I sent silence. The kind that only means one thing: you're on your own now. There were no threats. No angry texts. No warning **TS. Just confirmation emails. Just a quiet click. One after another. Like locks turning in doors she thought she still had keys to. And when I closed the laptop, the room felt colder. Because for the first time in years, I had stopped pretending this was still a marriage. I didn't reply to her message. Not right away. She had written "fix it." Urgent. 2 words that told me everything. Not about the card. Not about the transaction. About us. She didn't say what was wrong. Didn't apologize. Didn't ask. She commanded from another continent in another time zone, from behind a wall she'd built brick by brick, selfie by selfie. Fix it. Like I was her assistant. Her bookkeeper. The support beam of a life she no longer shared but still expected me to fund. The charge was minor, €140 at a boutique in Florence. Leather goods, maybe. Or perfume. I checked the alert twice just to be sure. Then I opened the banking app and began the work of undoing. It wasn't revenge. I didn't rage or curse or punch walls. I didn't pour a drink or call a friend or scream into the walls of our empty house. I sat in silence, same chair, same desk, and started closing the floodgates. The first thing I did was change the passwords. Everything. The joint credit card we opened 5 years ago when we moved in together. The savings account she never contributed to but knew the balance of. The airline points, the streaming bundles, the grocery delivery account she used from Europe to have fresh flowers sent to the house while she was gone. A performance, I realized now. A placeholder gesture. I removed her name from all shared accounts. I checked every auto payment. Anything that had her name, her number, her preferences attached. I paused, canceled, rerouted. The wine subscription she'd added under my email. The boutique skincare plan. Her digital magazine bundle. The recurring donation to an animal sanctuary in the south of France. Something she had never mentioned but felt poetic about, once gone. I moved the emergency fund to a private account she couldn't see. Not that she ever logged in, but just in case. I locked down the investment accounts too, the ones I built contribution by contribution, while she posted quotes about growth and self-love on her story. I thought I would feel guilty. I thought something inside me would resist. That the old version of me, the one who kept showing up even when she forgot to ask, would flinch. But I felt nothing. Or maybe I felt something so cold, so final it didn't register as emotion. She had made herself a ghost. I was simply clearing the space. 15 minutes later, another text. Michael? I need this card working. I'm at the hotel. They're holding my bag. Another notification buzzed. She had tried the charge again. Declined. A part of me wondered if she was with someone. If the bag was a gift. If this whole trip was a staged preamble to a life that had already moved on without me. But it didn't matter anymore. She had left me on hold. I was only returning the favor. The next thing I did was print the statements. I wanted to see it all, not just the recent charges but the history, the slope of it, the generosity, the blindness. I printed every month of spending for the last 2 years. The boutique brunch spots. The business coaching that never turned into work. The spontaneous weekends in Napa, Santa Fe, Asheville. Every flight she booked under the idea of soul-searching. I ran a highlighter over each charge. Pink for her. Blue for us. Yellow for me. The page bled pink. After an hour I had stacks. 12,000 for her last coaching cohort. Another 5 for the photography course she didn't finish. A few thousand here and there for wellness retreats, personal stylists, mood boarding sessions with people whose job titles were invented after 2015. Not once had she asked where it came from. Not once had she said thank you. It had all been framed as support, as believing in her. And I had believed, for a while. I looked at the numbers and saw what I had refused to see. She had never wanted a partner. She had wanted a patron. And I had signed the checks, hoping love would show up in the receipts. The phone buzzed again. A voice note this time. I didn't listen to it. I just read the transcript. Michael, this isn't funny. I'm kind of stuck here. I need this to work. There are people waiting. People waiting. I sat with that phrase for a while. Let it echo. Not you're the only one I can count on. Not I miss you. Not can we talk? Just people waiting. She wasn't asking me for help. She was warning me that her world, the one she'd built without me but still powered with my resources, was noticing the cracks. And that was when the decision hardened. Not out of bitterness. Not out of wounded pride. Out of truth. She was never on a break. She was on a leash. One she expected me to hold no matter how far she wandered. I opened a new browser tab and began documenting everything. I checked the mortgage, the utilities, the insurance policies. I made sure my name was the primary on all of it. That she wouldn't be able to change things in my absence. That when the collapse came, it would land on her side of the bed. Then I wrote down the timeline. Every trip she took. Every girls' weekend that lasted 5 days. Every flight booked last minute with an excuse. Every seminar. Every business mastermind that promised fulfillment and delivered spa selfies. I wrote it all down. Not because I planned to confront her, but because I needed to see the pattern. You don't lose someone in one moment. You lose them in increments. In glances that don't land. In sentences left unfinished. In shared dinners that become quiet. In touches that turn mechanical. In empty cups left on the counter like testaments to a connection that no longer needs warmth to survive. I hadn't lost Nora when she flew to Paris. I'd lost her 2 years ago. When she stopped laughing at my jokes. When she started keeping her phone face down during dinner. When she began talking about her next life chapter, like I wasn't part of it. I just hadn't believed it yet. Now I did. And belief, once hardened, is irreversible. The voice notes kept coming. Longer. Less calm. I finally played one, just to hear what she sounded like. Her voice was sharp, anxious. Not out of fear for us, but for her image. Michael, this is insane. Do you want me stranded here? You think this proves something? That you're in control? This is petty. I don't deserve this. I told you I needed space. I'm not doing anything wrong. Just fix the card. Please. This is so embarrassing. Embarrassing. Not painful. Not regrettable. Just inconvenient. To her, this wasn't a betrayal. It was a billing error. That was the moment I finally admitted the ugliest truth. I had married someone who saw love as leverage, who weighed support in dollars and loyalty in silence, who expected me to keep paying for a future I no longer had a seat in. I didn't respond to the message. I just opened our shared travel credit account and closed it permanently. A final click. One last confirmation email. Then silence. Not the kind you fix, the kind you inherit. And somewhere in Florence, I imagine she stood at a hotel counter, phone in hand, voice rising with indignation as she told someone, a clerk, a friend, a stranger, that her husband had gone crazy. I wonder if she mentioned my name, or if, like everything else, I had already been edited out. It took less than 24 hours for the messages to shift tone. First there was disbelief, then indignation, then something close to panic. The first few came fast, one after another. Michael, what the hell is going on? I need this fixed now. Are you trying to punish me? This is my life too. There were no questions about why. No trace of self-awareness. Just escalation. Because that's what happens when someone who's never been told no finally hears it. They don't reflect. They double down. Then came the voice notes. Longer now. Less sharp, more desperate. She was speaking faster, her tone rising like someone realizing the plane is going down and no one's in the cockpit. I don't understand what's happening. This is crazy, Michael. Do you want me to be stuck in a foreign country without money? Is that what you want? To humiliate me? Funny how quickly the word us disappeared when the money stopped. Every message was about consequences, never about connection. Not once did she ask what I was feeling, or why I might be doing this. Not once did she say she understood the silence, or feared the reason for it. It was all logistics, reputation, optics. I didn't reply. I watched the messages pile up, unread, unanswered. They lined my screen like missed alarms, but I had already woken up. 3 days later, she landed back in Omaha. No shopping bags, no suitcase stickers, no glowing photos of sunsets or skyline selfies. Just a gray coat and a forced composure that didn't reach her eyes. She didn't even ask me to pick her up. She took a cab, let herself in. I heard the front door click shut like a confession left unsigned. When I saw her in the kitchen, she looked at me like she wasn't sure if I was real, or if I'd grown sharper in her absence. I didn't say anything, just stared at her as she set her bag down slowly, like she wasn't sure which version of me she'd return to. "Hey," she said, voice flat. "I'm back." I nodded. Nothing more. She opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and leaned against the counter, waiting. Maybe for me to ask how the trip was. Maybe for me to ask if she found what she was looking for. But I didn't ask, because I already knew. She didn't find clarity. She found consequences. She shifted her weight, crossed her arms. "So, I assume you got my messages." I nodded again, still silent. She sighed. "Michael, you scared me. You embarrassed me. I was locked out of my room in Florence. I had to call the front desk from my own phone to explain that my husband had." She caught herself. I let the word hang there. Husband. A title she invoked only when the world told her no. I don't get why you do something so cruel. If you were mad, you should have just said something. That almost made me laugh. Because for years I had said everything. I had said I felt like a bystander in my own marriage. I had said I was tired. That I needed partnership, not dependence. That I wanted to feel seen. Not thanked, not worshipped, just acknowledged. She'd nod each time, offer a smile or an empty promise. Then the next month she'd book a trip or a class or a dinner with women I'd never meet. People she called guides, sisters, expanders. And I'd go back to work, pay the card, carry the weight. Now she stood in the kitchen, arms crossed like a teenager caught skipping school, and called me cruel for letting her feel the drop. I walked past her without a word, opened the laptop, sat at the table. The screen glowed with the spreadsheet I'd kept open since the night she left. Every charge, every dollar, every reminder. I turned it toward her. "This is the life you've been living," I said quietly. "This is what it costs." She blinked, unsure. I scrolled, line by line. "You wanted space. You wanted to figure things out. You called it a break. But you left everything behind like I was the hotel you'd return to. You kept the key. You just didn't pay for the room." Her face didn't change. Not at first. But I saw it in her hands. The way her grip on the water bottle tightened. The twitch in her jaw. "I didn't do this to hurt you," I said. "I did it to see what would happen if I stopped holding the structure up." She looked down, then away. "I thought we were okay," she said. "I thought this was just a pause." "No," I said. "You were on pause. I was still paying." Silence fell. The kind that settles in after a verdict. She didn't apologize. Not really. She muttered something about stress, about needing to breathe, about how the trip wasn't even that fun, that she was alone most nights, that the photos were for herself, not for show. But the words didn't land, because this wasn't about Florence, or Paris, or the boutique charge that wouldn't clear. It was about what she expected. That no matter where she went, I would stay right here. Lights on, card active, stability on tap, ready for her to come home to. But this time I hadn't. And now, back in the house she'd walked out of like it was a waiting room, she found that the front desk had closed. That night, she moved through the house like a ghost. She didn't touch me, didn't ask to talk, just floated, from room to room, as if trying to reattach herself to a life she had untethered. But it was already too late. I had reset reality. And the silence between us had weight now, not the kind you lift, but the kind you build around. The next morning, she opened her banking app at the table. I saw her face go pale. "You closed the savings account." "No," I said. "I moved it. But that was ours." I cut her off. "You haven't contributed to that account in 3 years. That doesn't mean. It means you don't get to call it ours when you only remember it exists after the balance drops." She didn't reply, just sat there, staring at her screen like it betrayed her. Later that day, she asked if I would consider opening access again. "Just temporarily. Until things stabilize," she said. "Until we figure this out." I told her I'd think about it. But I already had. I would not be the guarantee anymore. I would not be the plan B to a life where I was never plan A. That evening, she tried to soften. Made dinner. Put on a playlist we used to like. Lit candles. Peace offering. We ate in silence. At one point, she reached across the table, touched my hand, lightly. "I didn't mean to make you feel abandoned," she whispered. I needed to see what life felt like when I wasn't carrying everything." I looked at her then, really looked, and I realized the thing I hadn't said, the thing that made all of this necessary. "You were never carrying anything," I said. "I was. And when I finally put it down, you called it cruelty." Her hand pulled back, and we sat in the candlelight. Two people who had once loved each other, or at least tried to, now staring across a table neither of us could afford to cross anymore. The next week unraveled in quiet pieces. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just moved differently, like someone tiptoeing through a room they no longer owned. I watched her study the edges of our life as if realizing for the first time how little of it she controlled. There were moments where she tried subtle plays at reconciliation. She'd mention shared memories, ask what I wanted from the grocery store, sit beside me during the evening news. But every gesture felt rehearsed, performed, like a woman returning to a role after walking off set. And I had stopped being the audience. I slept on my side of the bed. I left early for work. I kept my headphones in during breakfast. The distance wasn't punishment, it was revelation. I no longer needed to say I was done. I had simply stopped participating in the fiction. The truth had already been spoken, in numbers, in declines, in the absence of approval. 3 days after she returned, her email pinged in the kitchen. She'd left her laptop open, forgotten or careless. I didn't mean to read it, but the subject line flashed like a wound. Final notice. Payment overdue. Account terminated. It was from her coaching platform, the one she'd used to brand herself, where she posted videos about empowerment and taking back control. They'd cut her off. I didn't say anything. That night, I heard her pacing in the bathroom, whispering into her phone. I heard her say things like, "It's temporary," and "there was a mix-up, and my husband's handling it." Her voice sounded brittle, like she knew the ground beneath her was no longer paid for. She came out, eyes puffy, mouth tight. "Can we talk?" I turned the volume down but didn't mute the TV. She took that as a yes. "I know I've made mistakes," she said. "I know I've taken things for granted. But you shutting everything down like this, it's not fair." Fair. It always came back to that word. As if the past 5 years hadn't been one long imbalance masquerading as partnership. As if fairness had anything to do with what I'd endured. Her reinventions, her disappearances, the way she spent freely while telling me I didn't understand growth. I looked at her. No warmth, no hate, just clarity. "You had the freedom to build your own life. I gave it to you. I paid for it. I never once stood in your way. And the moment I asked for recognition, you left." She looked down. "I didn't leave you," she said softly. "I left to breathe. You breathed on my dime." Silence. "I wasn't trying to escape you," she whispered. "Then why did it feel like relief when you walked out that door?" She didn't answer. Couldn't. And that was the real betrayal. Not that she left, but that she felt lighter without me. That I had become the weight instead of the wind. That she could look at everything I provided and still dream of something better. Something else. I stood and walked past her. Her hand brushed mine. "Michael," she said, almost pleading. "Please, don't give up on me." But it wasn't me who gave up. It was her. The moment she made our life optional. That weekend, she didn't leave the house. She hovered, cleaned obsessively, rearranged the fridge, reorganized the hallway closet, as if making order out of chaos would reset what had been broken. But you can't clean a rotting foundation. You can only demolish it. On Sunday, the doorbell rang. She answered before I could move. I heard voices, soft and strained. Then I heard her say my name. "Michael, can you come here?" I walked to the door and saw a man in a delivery uniform holding a parcel. Her name on the label. Her credit card declined. She looked at me, eyes wide. "They said the card didn't go through. Can you?" I didn't even let her finish. "No," I said. The man shifted uncomfortably. It's fine. I'll just return it." She watched the box disappear back into the van like a dream revoked. When the door shut, she didn't move. Just stood there, stunned. I left her standing. Monday morning, she tried again. Made me coffee. Sat across the table with a gentle smile. "I've been thinking," she said, "about what you said. About the structure." I waited. I didn't realize how much you carried. I got used to it. I think I thought the structure was the marriage. That if it was standing, we were okay. And now I see that you were the one holding it up. That without your support, there isn't much left. It was the closest thing to honesty I'd heard from her in months. "I don't know how to fix that," she said. "But I don't want to lose you." I nodded. Not agreement. Not forgiveness. Just acknowledgement. Because truth doesn't heal. It just clarifies. And what it clarified was this. I had not been a partner. I had been a pillar. An unthanked constant. And when I stopped being that, she stopped being calm. That week, the real consequences began. A tax bill arrived, one she'd ignored, assuming I would cover it. I didn't. Her credit score dropped. The boutique cards she'd used for business expenses defaulted. Emails turned red. Notifications escalated. She started forwarding them to me one by one. "Can we talk? This is getting out of hand. Michael, please, just this once." I didn't answer. because every request sounded like another chance to hold up the same structure. And I had laid it down. One evening, I came home to find her crying in the living room. Her laptop open, a document on the screen. A draft of a statement, something for social media. A post about transformation, hard lessons. The collapse of old systems. I read it in silence. Said nothing about me. Nothing about the man who had funded the last 5 years of her image. Nothing about the silence I had endured. The years I spent being her backup plan, her fallback, her unthanked guarantor. Just vague phrases. Metaphors. Poetic detachment. She wanted to own her fall without naming who had broken her fall every time before. I closed the laptop. "You're not ready to change," I said. "You're just learning how to package the consequences." She didn't deny it, and that was worse than any insult. The next morning, I moved into the guest room. She didn't protest. 2 days later, I stopped answering her texts. Even from inside the house. The marriage had ended. She just hadn't caught up yet. By the end of the month, she moved out. Took her things quietly. No dramatic farewell. No last apology. Just a text after she left. "I'm sorry. For everything." It was too late. Because the real apology had never been words. It would have been gratitude when it mattered. Partnership when I was drowning. Loyalty when the world told her she could do better. Instead, I got absence. And then panic. And now distance. And here's the part no one tells you: you don't feel relief when they leave. You feel stillness. The kind that aches. The kind that echoes. The kind that forces you to face the question: was I just the balance she needed until she believed she could stand on her own? And if so, was I ever really chosen?